Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're back, baby. For 1 week only, we're going to have to rename the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast into its new name just for this week. The You Like That Feels Great Baby. They wrote me off, but I ain't right back podcast. This week's guest, Seahawks and A's superfan, Evan Stenholm. No relation. He's actually, no, I'm just kidding. It's my brother, Evan Stenholm. Welcome to the show. Only our second guest in the history of the show. You have to be so proud to be on this esteemed program.
I am. I just want to take some time to thank, two titans of the sports podcasting industry here for allowing me and doing this charity work, because I want to sincerely apologize for bringing someone of my status and reputation onto the show to sully it. So I apologize in advance, but thank you for doing this charity work and allowing me to be here.
Yeah. Sometimes we like to reach out into the community and just, do the right thing. And we wanted to bring, someone who needed the reputation boost onto this esteemed podcast. So the reason that we're bringing Evan on is we absolutely have to have a very big discussion this week, as you two being the biggest sports fans I know in the world. It is time to have some big discussions. This is unfortunately perhaps the worst time in our sports lives. So I want to set the stage for this roundtable discussion, basically on the challenges of being a sports fan in 2023. The number one nightmare scenario in all of sports for Evan and I, and it's probably right at the top there for Joey, is your team being taken from you. And it looks like after the events of today, where John Fisher appears to have paid off the Nevada legislature and a bunch of lobbyists, it appears that the A's move to Las Vegas is essentially a done deal. Yes, there are a couple logistical hoops that they have to jump through from this point, involving the governor's signature, MLB owners approving it. I guess Steinbrenner came out today and said he may be voting against it. So there may be a slight chance there. But for all intents and purposes, it looks like the A's days in Oakland are essentially going to be over either at the end of the 23 season, or perhaps they'll do one more year at the Coliseum next year. So it's devastating news. I had to bring you guys on. We had to do this discussion. Obviously, I wish we could be talking about, OTAs and mini camps are starting for NFL teams. Let's preview all the divisions. We'll get to that at some point. But in this podcast, we got to talk about some tough stuff that's happened in sports over the past few months. So let's start with Joey. Look, as someone who I am 100% in tune with all the stuff that's going on with the A's, I've not ashamed to admit I called into the Nevada State Senate last week and just absolutely shit on Fisher and Cavill. It was cathartic more than anything. I knew where this was going. As someone who's viewing it from a little bit further back, what are your feelings on the A's leaving the Bay Area, as it's essentially a done deal now? This team from your childhood is moving to Las Vegas.
First off, Evan, great to have a longtime listener, first-time caller on the show. Actually probably turned down 14 requests to be on the show, but whatever, he's too big for us. Being saving lives, way more important than what I'm doing.
No, not at all.
No, I mean, like you said, it's the sports fans' greatest fear, like your team moving. You think it's like your team sucking, like, you never really think they're gonna move, but I think I talked about it on the last podcast we did. It's just like probably the biggest reminder that this is like Fantasyland. Like, it is just big, Sims City, like build your character, build your world, and then you just move it. And for the people that are the backbone of these billion-dollar industries are people like us. And yeah, it's just, it's you feel very small, really. Like, you think about how much time, money, emotion, you've spent on a team, and for it to just, I mean, I've never been this close to like a team. Obviously, my favorite baseball team, but seeing other teams move and like either, just completely just disintegrate, like it feels just like the sloppiest of them all. I don't know why. Maybe just because I am the closest, but like I don't remember just other teams I'm thinking that have moved. Like, I know, I'm sure if you ask like St. Louis, they're pretty, they would think Kroenke and the Rams were pretty, sloppy. I'm sure if you ask like I don't know who else has moved recently.
I mean,
Like the
people will bring
Chargers,
up
but
the Chargers and Raiders, and going
Raiders.
back to the Expos. Yeah, but the
I just
one
feel like the
thing that
Raiders have moved like 4 times. I feel like in my life, I just feel like that's just they kind of are the nomads. Like
right.
I know as much as people in Oakland want to, they're Oakland, but they really have been up and down California multiple times. I mean, it sucks. It sucks, big giant balls for Raider fans. But like, I guess I'm not too surprised about them. The Chargers, like, I mean, people are making fun of them being cheap the whole time. But I just feel like with the A's, it's just like it really has been like you were texting me. You think about it, like just not spending the money and like just I mean, so obviously running the team into the ground and then driving a bus over it. I don't know. It's just it feels it's sad. It sucks, but
And I think what separates it from recent relocations, so like the Rams from St. Louis to LA, the Chargers from San Diego to LA, is football teams are very national. Like the Raiders moving around doesn't really do much because they're going to sell out every game. Every game's going to be on national TV. The local market only has radio. Like you don't have your local, TV announcers and all these local things that tie the team there other than like these 8 times a year where you're actually there at the game. What sucks about this is baseball is a community sport. And Evan, you and I know this better than anybody. We've probably been to, I don't know, at least 200 games each at the Coliseum.
Mhm.
This is
I bet
thing.
it's more than that.
It's got to be more than that.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's definitely.
It's
like
a
a lot
huge
more.
number. And we're, this is a community thing. This is a Bay Area thing. This is an East Bay thing that's being ripped away from us. And I mean, obviously there was the reverse boycott last night, which really in essence was like a celebration of life, like a final moment of joy at the Coliseum because they knew this thing was coming to an end. So as someone who's been an A's fan from birth, who's been to a million games, Ev, what was it like hearing this news, watching last night's game? Obviously, the emotions are very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as a sports fan, it's kind of uncharted waters for us at least. And like you were saying, Joey, there are other fan bases that have gone through this, but because it happens to someone else, you always think, oh, that's sad for them, but you can't really relate to it. But now it's just a gut punch.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a team that, for as long as I can, some of my earliest memories are going to A's games. I think I was 7 years old when I was there for the 20-game win streak and was there at game 19 to see Miguel Tejada hit through a 5-man infield. Have memories, going to the upper part of the first deck where they had the handicap section going with our grandparents, Zampa and Nana. Every single year of my life, I've been to an A's game, and not just one A's game, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's not even like it's a sports team. It's a part of your identity at this point. Like if people ask me like who I am as a person, one of the first things that comes out is I'm an A's fan. As sad as that is to say recently, but
I was gonna say that. That's such a good point because you have all these. We have grew up in the social media area. We have all these about me's, your bio, right? What's the first thing we all put? Like people say, like, "Oh, I'm an American," or like, "Oh, I drive Chevys," or like, "I'm a whatever." I'm from wherever, or like I worship whatever, or like
I'm conservative or liberal. Yeah,
like I'm whatever. It's like not only has it been the first thing, it's usually when I had social media, I don't anymore, but that was the only thing I would put on. And I was trying to, I was texting Erik last night. He was asking me why the hell I was watching hockey last night. But I just said, like, I go back to the Sharks sent me a survey a couple years ago when they were like, really like, why the hell is no one coming to the game? Like, it's really simple. You suck balls. And it's expensive. They like, your feelings about towards the team. And they asked me like, what do you feel? And it was like emotions. It felt like, it was like, not like oh, do you wish tickets were cheaper? It was like, what do you feel? And I was trying to tell Erik, like, I love football, love watching the Niners. Like, it's cool. It gives like all this emotion. Like when I see a Niner fan, like you said, it's very national. It's like, oh, it's like, hey, what's up, man? Like, you're cool. When I see a guy in a Sharks hat, I think I know that guy. Like, I think he's family. Like, and I'm sure that's what it is for you guys with Ace, I mean, I talk like I was an Ace. I still am, but I just, with everything that's happened and just general, the sport is just not as exciting as I used to think.
Jamie and I were
It's
in
like you see an
Newport.
A's fan, you're like, oh my God, let's shake hands. Let's like have a beer. It's not like
Exactly.
It's like walking down the
Yeah.
road, and it's like that is over.
Jamie and I were in Newport Beach a couple weeks ago, and we were going to go get some breakfast, and I saw a guy in like an authentic mint Ricky Henderson jersey, and I was like, I have to just go talk to him. If he had been wearing literally any other shirt in the world, I would have not even noticed him. But I was like, I have to go to talk to him because that's my guy right there. And that's what Evan's hitting at, is like, this is a part of our identity because it's been happening since we were little kids. Both of our first baseball games we ever went to in our life, 1999, it was against the Orioles. It was Cal Ripken was playing for the Orioles. Matt Stairs hit a game-winning homer, and Evan and I were there with our grandma and grandpa, my dad and mom, and my uncle. And we were all sitting at the back of one of those sections, 120, 121, where they had the handicap seating so my grandpa could join us. And I will always remember that. It was like, I remember, my grandpa telling me, hey, that's Cal Ripken Jr. He's one of the best shortstops of all time. And, watching this A's team, and hey, this is my team. It's not like, I mean, obviously I love the Vikings and I love the Sharks, but this is my team that I've been to hundreds of games for. So it's like, this has been a forged part of my identity, since I was a kid. When I was in, junior high and high school, like I would be A's guy to a lot of people, like the guy that just wears green and yellow every day to school. And I know Ev's had a similar experience. And Joey's the Sharks guy. He wears his freaking Danny Heatley jersey to school every day. Like that's just what we were. And that's what people see us as. And it's like, this is, a part of us that's being ripped away, and it's devastating. And it's like, we'll have this discussion as we get further into the podcast, but I keep getting this overarching feeling that as I get older, it's not necessarily me getting more jaded. It is the influence of, corporate interests and special interests and billionaires who've been given their money from, trust funds and inheritance that are just playing with all of this as if it's just not even real. And it really does sully what used to be something that, we all valued very highly in our lives. And it's a lot of different things working together in unison that's just making this a really shitty experience for East Bay sports fans, for St. Louis football fans, for San Diego football fans, for Montreal baseball fans, for basketball fans in Vancouver, Seattle, all these places that lost their teams because of this corporate greed. It's devastating, and it makes you want to not focus upon sports. But as we'll get to later, it's very difficult for us to give this up because it's our favorite thing in the world. But we got to talk about another topic here. We'll obviously get back to the A's here in a little bit. But Joey, we were texting yesterday. I was always devastated every time the Giants won the World Series 2010, 12, and 14 because I fucking hate the Giants and always have and always will. You had your version of that yesterday with the Golden Knights winning the Cup, and I can't believe you just sat there and watched the whole thing. Like, oh my God, why would you put yourself through it, dude?
I still love it, as ridiculous as that is. I thought in 2012 when the LA Kings won was the worst. I mean, when I was a big A's fan, like you were when the Giants won, and that sucked. But it wasn't as hard for me as like seeing the Kings win, and then especially when they won again 2 years later after they came back against the Sharks when they blew it down.
Or when the Seahawks won in 2013.
No,
Well,
because
I remember that one a little differently, but
it's well, I mean that sucks, but like that's just a tough loss. Like this just feels like bigger than that, which I don't know how to explain anything other. Mostly because it's hockey. And the thing about the Niners is very different because a lot of people always love to say, well, like the Niners are still, even though I haven't seen one shit of it, the Niners are still like considered like a championship team, 5-time Super Bowls. I'm like, when the hell did that happen? I haven't seen it. Like, I got no part in that. But like the thing like the Sharks have carried around for now 32 years is they're like the exact opposite. Like choke job, like just bums, like when it matters. And so like the only thing I had was like, if just so and so team just couldn't win, I'll feel better about myself. Like so and so, so like LA had never won. Be like, oh, we've gone forever without winning, but then LA won. This is so much worse. Like 6 years, and they have just become an absolute powerhouse. And like, I'm just be very complimentary. I mean, what they have built in 6 years. I mean, if you saw the views of like the strip and everything, I mean, it looks unreal. It looks like what an unreal atmosphere. And the thing was, is you watched the stuff last night. And like it's a party. It's pure Vegas. It's a party. I'm like, no one's crying. I'm like, dude, I'd be rolling with the mayonnaise on the bottom of the SAP Center floor, crying if the Sharks ever had anything like that happen. And everyone's like, woo, high five! This is so much fun. I'm like, it's just been nothing but fun, except for like, sorry guys, like about 5 minutes in one game in the second year. Other than that, it's literally been like, I know they missed the playoffs last year. Like, oh my God, sky is falling. And it's like, but we talk about the A's with ownerships, right? Vegas has a great owner. I mean, when he bought the team, he said, we're going to win in 6 years. And he put his money everywhere his mouth could possibly put it. Mm-hmm. And they won in 6 years. And that is like, wow. Like, he cares. I think Hasso cares, but I never see him. This guy's at like, the Vegas guy's at a lot of games. Mm-hmm. I mean, pays for everything, first class facility. I'm sure first class weight room, bathroom, whatever. You know, there's not shit coming out of the toilets like at the Coliseum. But yeah, no, it's. I mean,
ownership clearly matters. The guy also built that stadium without a dime of public money. It should be pointed out.
No $300+ million of public money going to that one.
Yeah. I talked to a couple friends who live in Nevada this week. I was like, how do you feel about your tax money going towards that A's stadium? And they brought up what a lot of the people who dissented against that vote brought up, that if the Golden Knights could do it without a dime of public money and they're this massive success, why can't you guys do it? And the answer is John Fisher is a
not to just
schmuck.
Get back to the A's, but I still just don't understand why Vegas wants them. Like they have to know they're getting an expansion team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why would you settle for this schmuck? That's the thing. And I think it's just straight up crony capitalism where John Fisher.
You texted me like, oh, he paid him off. And I was just thinking, like, I know people say that all the time, but what does that look like? Does it come in a duffel bag? Like, does some guy just call you and
you just hire lobbyists who essentially just communicate to the governor for you so that there's no crime committed? And they basically told the governor of Nevada, Joe Lombardo, hey, get this thing passed. Here's a blank check on all this shit that you want. Mm-hmm. You know, get this thing passed. And all of a sudden, all these people, including the guy who grilled Dave Cavill last week, flipped their vote. Flipped his vote immediately. You know, these spineless.
It's a yes or no question. Answer it.
Yeah, he's the only one that like tried to hold Cavill's feet to the fire, and yet I look today, like his tweets, like, this is a great deal for Las Vegas. Well, look at all the jobs it's creating. It's like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like how much was that check?
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
And the craziest thing, I've learned more than I ever care to know about Nevada politics over the last 2 weeks, is all of these people have jobs. This job as a state representative or senator there, that's their like part-time job that they do for like 3 or 4 months a year. So these are all people who are like that guy Doñate. He's like a teacher or something. I'm like, of course, if John Fisher goes, hey, vote yes, I'll give you $100,000. He'll be like, abso-fucking-lutely. You know, that this is just how politics goes, and it's devastating. But the point we were making is ownership matters. You know, Vegas went from not having any sports teams to having the probably number one organization in the NHL right now, just because they have a top flight owner. And that's, you know, it's sickening.
I mean, there's the original six. If you talk like, I mean, just like, I don't want to say prestigious, but like you have the original six. There's maybe like a couple other teams. I mean, they're easily a top 10, like just brand in the NHL. I'm not going to say like, you know, the history and everything, but they're a top 10 brand. I mean, I know that like you're saying the TV rates were probably terrible. I'm like, yeah, they're always terrible. It's hockey, but like Vegas actually rates pretty well. Like, so if the ratings were terrible, that's Florida. Because Vegas actually draws decently.
Right.
But just, I mean, the building's always packed. I mean, I went to the Sharks' first ever regular season game there years ago. I mean, it's unreal. Other than the Sharks losing, it's great. So
But
super happy, super happy. Last night was fun. Why the hell did Jonathan Quick get the cup before Aiden Hill?
Yeah,
How
what
does
was
that
the
happen?
deal with that? It was very strange. I only watched, I mean, obviously I watched the A's game from start to finish yesterday because I just had to. It was like a cathartic release to watch, and it was, like one last good moment at the Coliseum, but I did flip over a couple times. I mean, I'll never forget watching Ovi lift the cup. That was awesome when Ovechkin finally got, I mean, that was like, it felt like a cool moment. And when the Nuggets won the other night, I watched that whole celebration because you like to see, I wanted to see Jokic, and all,
He didn't want to be there.
No, he didn't want to be. He's like, no,
saw
I
his
finally get to
post-game
go
thing
home.
when he's like, oh, I get to go home. They're like, no, you got the parade. He's like,
What
He
day?
goes,
Thursday?
What day is the parade? They're like, Thursday. He's like, I have to get back to my horses. I'm like, dude, you want to talk about a guy who he's just like the best in the world at his job, but he's like, when am I off the clock? But yeah, like you were
the
saying,
NBA needs more of him.
yeah, they need more of him, more of Giannis, more of Steph Curry, these guys that stick with the organization and try to ride it out and win instead of hopping from team to team. But that's a discussion for another day. Ev, we brought you on the podcast also because we've alluded to this over the last 6 months, just talking about your feelings about the Seahawks when we inevitably shit on Russell Wilson, as we're prone to do on this pod. We're going to give you a little bit
I
of
haven't noticed.
We're going to give you a little bit of the floor here to defend your guy, Russ. Obviously, in this large discussion of the reasons we're having trouble with sports here in 2023 and as we get older is, you are the biggest Seahawks fan in the world, but your fandom was tested big time last year with the trade of Russell Wilson, booing him on opening day, the way the teammates talked about him, the way that whole thing went down. So give us your take on what it's like to be a Seahawks fan now, given that your favorite player of all time, the one player who brought you guys the Super Bowl, was kind of summarily thrown out of Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, it was so weird seeing this guy that I'm a Russell Wilson stan. Just get that out of the way.
That's okay, by the way. That's okay.
It feels like therapy talking about it because no one seems to like Russell. Like everyone decided in one off season, fuck Russell Wilson. Oh, he goes to take care of the kids at the hospital. He goes over to fuck that. He's a cornball. It's like just all that went out the window, and suddenly I had to go into hiding as a Russell Wilson fan. But it was just so weird for me having this guy, and especially this kind of ties into the A's thing too. As an A's fan, I'm not used to having a player for more than like 4 years that I can love. Like my jerseys for the A's swap every 3 years because they're gone.
I never even
Russell
had
Wilson,
an A's jersey because of that reason. The only jerseys I had were the ones they gave away for free, like those little whatever mesh things. I think I might have had one that was that had no name on the back, but
honestly, that's the best bet you could ever make.
I just it is true. Like I buy jerseys just as much as any sports fan, and never bought an A's one. I'm like, who the hell am I putting on the back here? Anyways,
somehow the last one I got was Ramon Laureano, which thanks to steroid suspensions, he's the only one left on the team. So my one good sports investment for jerseys.
Yeah,
but yeah, with Russ, he's this guy where again, as an A's fan, I'm not used to having players around that I can love and start to really appreciate, and guys that I can say, oh, that's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer as a Hall of Famer with my team. And he was the face of the Seattle Seahawks for 10 years. And pretty much, I know a lot of people didn't like him because of the cornball stuff and everything, and I got that, but you only heard smatterings of that occasionally. It was always like, oh yeah, he's corny, but I mean, you can't argue with how he plays. Look how good he is. And then to have him be traded and then summarily hated by seemingly everyone in one season was just such a whirlwind for me, because it's like it's like being in a 10-year relationship and suddenly everyone says, oh, this guy's bad for you. It's like, well, how did that happen? What am I, these last 10 years, that one Super Bowl I have, did it mean anything? I don't even know anymore. But it's been so bizarre because I try to support the Seahawks and Russell Wilson still, but it feels like doing that, I'm being pulled in two completely different directions. Because like Erik was saying, that first game where he goes back to Seattle, I have very mixed emotions. I'm like, oh, I'm sure the Seahawks are going to treat him well. The fans are going to give him a round of applause. They boo the living shit out of him. Like
it was. I remember texting you when that happened. It was so far beyond surreal because I expected him to run out of the tunnel, and it would be. I mean, I thought it would be thunderous applause and maybe like a tip of the helmet before kickoff, and then it would get what it was the second he stepped on the field, thunderous boos. And I texted you right when that happened, like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Like you see, like the St. Louis Cardinals give a standing ovation to Stephen Piscotty when he comes back after playing like 2 seasons there. This guy got Seattle their like first championship since the Sonics and has been the face of Seattle sports for years. First game, first opportunity back, he's like public enemy number 1. It was just the weirdest start to the season. And by the end of the season, I kind of started to get over it a bit. But it really, like, to be perfectly honest, it left a bad taste in my mouth. Like
Russ did, really or like the people talking crap about him.
His play left a bad taste in my mouth, but also the people talking shit.
But if I was a Seahawks fan, I wouldn't. I'd be like, I'd want you to do well, but I wouldn't care. Like, you're not on my team anymore.
Yeah, and I get
like
that.
If I was
There's
a Hawks fan, I'd be more
like,
upset if the Broncos won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, we did absolutely fleece them in that trade, so that was
like,
nice
yeah,
part
you
of
get the best of both worlds. You got him, he was great, and then as soon as he started playing like shit, look at all those picks we got, and we're better.
It's true,
like,
but yeah, that's the thing. Like,
there's no possible way you would have rather had him on the team. There's no way, with hindsight. There's no way.
with how Gino played, I can't say I would have. With how he played, but. Again, that just goes into like the whole whirlwind about it. Was everyone thought when that trade happened? I don't care who it is. Every single person thought, "Oh my God, what the Seahawks are doing is just a travesty." Yeah. Like they're going to have Geno fucking Smith be the head of this team. He's going to be the quarterback. Yeah, no one could have predicted that. By the end of the season, like the Seahawks looked like geniuses, but at the time, it's like, oh my God, what we just traded
universally
the best player on the team for, so we need some picks and everything. I get that. Granted, with Pete and John, how they draft, it's a little questionable sometimes, but they knocked it out of the park last year. They got, I know they decided to revert back to their 2012 selves and finally learn how to draft again.
Basically, they it's been 1 year, and like you could unequivocally say they're like, yeah, we were right. Like this was us. Like, I'm glad we're talking about this because I'm not going to say I've thought about it a lot in my own time. I don't think about Russell Wilson when I'm on the couch watching, whatever. But I really thought about it. And I honestly, like, even me, who literally, he's not a hockey player, but he's probably up there like top 5, like most hated players ever for me, ever. Like any sport, like. And the other ones are all probably hockey players who play against the Sharks. He might be the only footballer I've hated like this much. And it had nothing to do with his personality. Like if you're an opposing fan, you're like, I don't care if he's a cornball. He like eludes a sack, almost falls, and then like throws a lollipop 100 yards down the field. And it's a touchdown. Like every time you're just like, your jaws on it. You're just like, I don't even know how he does it. Like Brady beats you, or like Peyton Manning beats you. It's like, oh, he's slicing and dicing. Russell Wilson's like spin around 8 times, like almost gets sacked, and then like let's ride, and then lollipop to either like DK, Lockett. It's been like Doug Baldwin, whoever it is on the other side of it. It's always like, and it's like touchdown. It's like, dude, I'm so sick of this. I hate him. I hate him so much. But then even me was like, I feel bad for this guy. Like this. I feel like as fans and as just honestly as people, like we crossed the line with Russell Wilson, and like he's a cornball. Like the only thing I could say that I still don't get that bothers me is like why were so many of his teammates like didn't like him. Like I don't care if you, me, first take, whoever's talking about like doesn't like him, but why does like every single person on the team not like you? It seems like, and like that was the thing too about that game. After the game, Like he was like, he hugged DK Metcalf. I remember post game, he's like, DK is like one of my best friends ever. I'm like, really? I mean, I know like you played with him like a year or two. Like I don't ever see you with him. I was like, do you have like other friends from like childhood or like anything? And like I would text Eric and be like, he always goes to game. I'm glad he seems like he got his loving and supporting wife, but like he's never at like, I don't know, Mariner games with like his offensive line. I don't, not that is everything like that. I was just like, that's always odd. But like I read stuff about him, and I don't know, you probably read about this, Evan. You probably already know about it. But that like he's not a therapist, but that like life coach he had that died. Did you hear about that? Know that?
No, I didn't hear about this.
You didn't.
No.
So if you look at this guy who used to work for the Niners, he was their media guy. His name's Joe Fan. He now works for Seattle. You probably follow him on Twitter or something. I used to follow him, but then he's like, I'm going to Seattle. I'm like, unfollow. He was like, he talked about this story that came out that his like life coach that Russell Wilson has used his entire career ever since his dad died. I think his dad died, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was like
Yeah.
pivotal. Sorry, talk to the mic. Like this guy was his best man, his dad, his father figure. Like literally, he went to him about everything, and he died like mid 2021. So like it was a year, I think, or maybe it was COVID year. It was the one that they lost to the Rams at home in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think they went 12-4, won the division.
I think that was 2020.
I think the guy passed away like in November, early December. And like after that, Russell Wilson just was not the same. He struggled for like mentally, like how to like, I don't know if it was just mentally, spiritually, whatever it was. He was like completely lost, and he has not found it since. And you just watch him and the way he talks. He's very like self-affirmative, and it almost looks like he's trying to convince him of something because he doesn't have like, I'm somebody who's been to therapy most of my like high school, like whatever, been to it. Like the way they coach you how to like kind of like retrain your brain, it almost sounds like he's trying to do that on his own without like a guy he really, really trusts. That's just, I could be totally mistaken, but I heard that story and was like his whole like let's ride like this every like he always like every single game they're like, Russ, you threw like 8 picks, like 50 yards, like you don't even look like you know what team you're on. Like post game, he's like, we're just gonna correct it, and positive attitude and let's ride. And everyone just wants him to throw a chair or like just say like I sucked ass today, and he just won't. Like just in his mind, he just does not believe he should ever say that. And like his fans were like, dude, this guy's such a cornball. Like what? This guy doesn't get it. And I'm like, I took a step. I'm like, I think this guy's really struggling. And I read that story. I'm like, this has got to be it. Like it's a big reason why I'm not sure he ever finds like his peak self, which maybe he does it because he's just older. But I was like, I feel really bad for him because I've never seen an athlete who didn't commit a crime get put through the laundry like he did the whole season.
He somehow managed to become public enemy number 1 over Deshaun Watson last year. Like
that is wild.
It's
like that's wild.
Like we have one person sexually assault 26 women. It's like, oh yeah, he's terrible, but look, he's back in the NFL now. His suspension's over. Let's just let him play. Russell Wilson, every week it's like, it's the Russell Wilson experience. Let's talk about how shitty he played this week. Like what the hell?
When he did high knees on the plane to London.
See, like that stuff, hours. Like that stuff. I originally I probably still do if you really ask me, like, dude, like what was the goal, Russ? If I was like his like life coach, I'd be like, what was the goal to say you do high knees on a private plane? What was the goal? But like the fact that he does say some of this stuff and he's so positive, it's like I like just as somebody who has been like tried to go to like therapy, retrain your brain for like whatever it is, stress, anxiety, whatever. If you have like, people have like bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever. I'm not saying I'm no doctor. Maybe you could tell, Evan. Maybe you know. But I just like he looks like he is like publicly, like every day, nonstop, trying to retrain his brain. And I thought about that. I was like, you know what? I honestly feel horrible for this guy, and especially now that he's not playing for Seattle. I'm like, you know what? I hope you. I don't really care if you do super well, but like, I hope you don't get like obliterated every Monday morning by everybody. I was just like, wow.
Well,
Like,
It's
as someone who's
something that
watched
sat
them,
wrong for the last entire year. So I wanted to get your take on, how that affected you as a sports fan, seeing Wilson go through what he went through last year after being your favorite athlete in sports for a decade.
and it's kind of like that thing too with the Oakland A's, where I watch sports to enjoy the product on the field. Like that's it. But with the A's, with ownership and all the move stuff and everything, it takes a lot of fun out of the sport for me. And initially in the beginning of the Seahawks season, it kind of took a little bit of the fun out of me because it's like, here's this guy that I love, this one player that I could count on. But now it's like every single person turned on him. And now I'm supposed to move on.
did
from
you
like
feel
10
that way
years of
before he
enjoying it.
started playing? I'm just curious. How did you feel like post trade, but pre like the absolute crucifixion of Russell Wilson last year?
So I was going into the season, and I still was, obviously a big Seahawks fan throughout the season, but I went into it like, we're going to probably suck this year, but I'm still going to root for the team to do well, and I'm going to root for Russ to do well. Like, it was clear that the relationship between Seattle and Russ was broken. Like, I was going to root for both to do well. But then after game one, it's like, well, damn, everything's against Russell Wilson now. So all I have is either being a Seahawks fan or just deciding like, fuck Russell Wilson. I'm going to join with everyone else and clown on him, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that. Cause
I wouldn't. I would never. I mean, if I was, I don't know. See, I might have. I don't know. I've never experienced that because all the players that I loved, like you love him, left when they were super old. Like all the guys on the Sharks, like even. I mean,
Burns,
honest,
Marlowe, Thornton, Pavelski,
Burns,
they were all
Thornton.
late 30s,
Yeah, like if Burns, if any one of those guys would have left like 29, 30, 31, and then this one, honestly, the Meyer trade was probably the first time in franchise history they ever were on the other end of one of those. Usually they're like, oh, let's go get Dan Boyle, let's go get Danny Healy, let's go get Brent, and then now it's like we're the guy trading the guy everyone wants, and like let's all hope these like 4 picks and 2 minor leaguers turn out to be somebody. But like we sucked, so it didn't matter. Like whatever, we should have traded Meyer, should have traded Hurdle. It wouldn't. And then Thornton left when he was like 40. So it's different. And like the Niner guys, like I'm not gonna say that's like Jimmy. I mean, I'll miss Jimmy. I'll miss his pretty face. But but yeah, like I'm not nearly as like you were. Should I be for like you were for Russ?
Yeah, but obviously, it made it extremely challenging for Evan to follow his team last year. And, I want to, before we get to that big discussion, and then we'll go to Joey's Jack and the Bum of the week after that, I want to bring up one more thing that I just wanted to talk about that's also making it very difficult to be a sports fan right now. And that's what happened last Tuesday, when the mother of all sports info bombs dropped in the morning. I texted this to Joey and a lot of my friends who I play golf with, and I was like, can you believe that PGA and LIV are merging? This is nuts. Almost to a man, almost all of them said, is that The Onion? I'm like, no, that's a real story. That really just happened. And I feel like this is the craziest quote unquote merger ever in sports. This is essentially the Saudi government taking over golf. They've acquired basically a controlling stake in the PGA Tour and the European Tour. Basically, they bought golf, to put it simply. And this is another thing that I wanted to talk about is like, it's extremely morally challenging to now watch the PGA Tour knowing the Saudi government, which financed 9/11, which murdered Jamal Khashoggi, which commits atrocities every day across their country over there, doesn't allow women to drive, like one of the worst places in the world.
Well, that might
They
be good
own
because
golf.
Kayla can't drive.
I mean, yeah, obviously, there's some good things over there as well, but no, I'm just kidding. But
She doesn't listen to this podcast.
But
She might be listening to me now.
Yeah, God help you if so. But that's the point I'm trying to make is like, there has to be a line, right? Like, everybody's been saying this on Twitter. Everybody who, follows the game of golf has been saying this. There has to be a line where you say, hey, this is too much. Like, if the Saudi royal family bought, say, the NFL for $80 billion. And they were like, hey, we're going to make all the games free on broadcast. Nobody has to pay for Sunday ticket. It's just going to be broadcast for free. This is great. There has to be a line, right, where people say, oh, you just threw us a financial lifeline.
I don't think there
that's
is.
great. But that's the thing, is like,
There's not.
am I wrong?
I think, honestly, when I saw the news, like I was like, oh, this is great. Because like all I care about is like all the great golfers being upon one course, one tournament. Like this splitting them up all over sucks. Like, did I understand when I read it that like it was all going to be controlled by the Saudis? No, I didn't. I only read the little notification that popped up on my phone. I just find it interesting, like why? Like the PGA must have been like really struggling for money. Like they must have known like this is over. Like honestly, the Saudis must have just said, dude, we're throwing like just unlimited cash. And like the PGA's like must have known like it's only a ticking time bomb before this is over. And I don't know. Like I just like obviously what the Saudis are doing, like, yeah, of course, like terrible. But like, I don't know. Howard talked about it on his show, and like he was just like, I can't keep up with all these things like I'm not supposed to support, right? They're like, yeah, are these people questionable? Sure. But like, do you have an iPhone? I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you think that's made with the most wonderful like morals in the history of the world? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, what shoes do you? I'm like, he's like, I'm like, yeah, it's terrible. I'm like, don't we get oil there? Like, doesn't my car have oil like from there? I don't know where it comes from. I'm just like, I can't keep up with all this stuff. So then golf is like, well, we might as well do it. I don't matter. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if we all had morals, we wouldn't have people on the homeless on the streets, but we don't, because we live in this wonderful spinning rock of sus called Earth. And yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I am just completely jabbed, just like, yeah, it's gonna happen. Like, everything just sucks.
Exactly. That's the overarching point here. This is a spinning rock of sus. I love that. I
say that all the time. Just things are just like, oh, we're on this spinning rock of sus called Earth.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Like,
just rename the podcast to that at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind, with the PGA Live merger, with Ev's experience with the Russell Wilson saga, with Joey's Golden Knights winning the cup and, ripping his heart out, with the A's committing the ultimate sin of moving out of their home market, is it becoming impossible to separate sports from the real world, and in some cases politics, but the real world, money, the economy, the, government? Is it becoming impossible for you as a sports fan to separate this, given how much money's being poured into the sports world? And, is it ruining it for you, or do you still believe in sports? I know the point you're going to make, Joey. We talked about this before the pod, but I want to make my point first. For me, there are levels.
Then we're just going to not let Evan talk. He's just going to sit there.
Well, I think
happy to be here.
Yeah,
happy to be here. You know why I'm here. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
First time listener, still a listener, not a caller anymore.
First time listener, also listening. Yeah,
we're definitely gonna. I think Evan is gonna side on the same side that I am. So I'll go first, then Joey, then Evan. I think there are levels to it where, for instance, the PGA Tour thing, I don't know if I can watch that product anymore. Colin Cowherd made this point last week that the Masters is owned by Augusta National. The USGA owns the US Open. The Royal and Ancient Golf Club in St. Andrews owns the Open Championship. And the PGA Championship is owned by the PGA of America, which is like golf teachers. So those four events I can watch.
Shout out to Michael Block.
Every one of these other events, I don't know if I can watch them anymore. I think that it's just a bridge too far. The commissioner of the PGA, Jay Monahan, essentially allied himself with the 9/11 families in a bid to try to put a stop to Live. And then he just completely sold them out last week. Just completely, one of the greatest acts of disrespect I've ever seen by signing that deal last week. Disgusting. And then pivoting over to the A's, same thing. I will no longer be a fan of not only the Oakland A's, or not only the A's once they move out of Oakland, but I will no longer be a fan of baseball. I will no longer consume that product because Rob Manfred was complicit in it. So there are levels to this, if like Evan experienced the whole Russell Wilson thing, if say I had this iconic athlete, say the Vikings draft a quarterback next year who plays for us for 10 years, wins the Super Bowl, and then leaves the team and gets absolutely shit on by everybody on the way out, I can get over it. I think I would get over it fairly quickly because it's the NFL and the players switch teams so often. But there are levels to this. So for me, I am out on baseball permanently the second that it no longer says Oakland on the front of that jersey. I am out on all golf tournaments that are owned now by this Saudi entity. I cannot watch that. There has to be a line somewhere. So let's actually send it over to Evan first, and then we'll get Joey's counterpoint. So do you find yourself somewhere in that spectrum where you, Evan, feel like you need to draw a line in the sand, or do you think because there's so few alternatives for like what the hell else are we going to do with our time that you'll still consume as many sports products as you can, or as many as you normally would?
Well, I think, like you said, there's levels to it, and for me, to an extent, yeah, I think there will be times like with the A's. Once they leave Oakland, I'm done. Like I can't consume A's baseball anymore because it's only Oakland A's for me. Anything less than that would be a travesty, and I can't do that. And I've had friends ask like, "Oh, if the A's move, are you going to find another team?" No, like that's a non-starter for me. So I can't see myself following baseball anymore. That being said, just because of how big of a sports fan I am, if there's something on TV, if there's a World Series 3 years down the road, the A's have already moved out, and there's some, let's say Shohei Ohtani's in the World Series, I'm probably going to tune in and watch it because there's only so much that you can do. Like you said, there's not much else to do outside of sports. Like I'm going to probably inevitably default to watching sports again, but like it definitely is hard though, because like we've been saying this whole time, I don't want to talk about A's ownership. I don't want to talk about, what happened, to 9/11 families and how the hell does that relate to golf? Like it's just
right.
Like I watch sports as an escape.
I just pictured like the commentator for golf being like 136 out. I think he's going with the pitching wedge. See how close he gets it, like that plane in the fucking 9/11 Twin Tower. How close does he hit it? And it is down, just like the tower.
Oh my God. It's just that's what I'm saying. That's what Evan's saying. It's like, we don't want to talk about this, right?
No, I don't want to talk about it, but we have to joke about it because it's just fucking ridiculous.
Right.
But it's just the reality of being a sports fan, it seems nowadays. Not that it's always, been hunky-dory with sports, but it just seems like there's just an avalanche of bullshit going on with all of our favorite sports teams and leagues and everything. But yeah, I mean, in a few years from now, I'm probably inevitably going to default back to it because that's all I've ever known is watching sports. Mm-hmm. So it's hard. Like in the here and now, I'm pissed. I don't want to watch, when the A's moved to Vegas, I'm done with baseball or whatnot. But again, all it's going to take is, oh, look, Tiger Woods has made his 28th comeback. He managed to break his leg for the 7th time, and now he's back in the Masters again. Like, okay, I'll probably watch that. Like, it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I could still have my grudges about it, but I don't see myself keeping away from sports entirely. I'm going to have to watch.
Right. And I think Joey is very much in that boat. But your point is basically there's nothing else to do for you because this is all you've done your whole life.
That's part of it. I will say maybe pleasantly surprised, but whether it's due to just me getting older, you get your priorities change in life. I always looked at my dad, as I'm sure you guys did. Like, when we're younger, your team loses. Like, I mean, I've punched a hole in a wall. I've snapped something. I've ripped a shirt in half. I've done. And then you look at, like, I look at my dad. He'd be like, he's like, I don't have I just don't have the emotion. He's like, I'm like, do you care? Like, what you say you're a big fan, but like, I just see you sit there and you just change the channel. Like, how can you take it that well? He's like, I don't. I'm just 65 years old. I've seen it for 65 years, and it's like I've never seen the Sharks win. Like whatever, I know he was alive for. He's just like it. He's like, I have a super stressful job at work. He's like, I'm raising your fat ass like at home. Like I got other. He's like, I got other things to worry about. And I'm like, I always told myself I'm never going to be that guy, but like I feel like it's naturally just happened. Like I remember I used to be huge. I mean, I was a huge A's fan, and I even loved basketball as younger, and then I stopped playing it. And then like you just as crazy as if you have like a somewhat well-rounded life, you just don't have a time unless it's your job to watch everything all the time. Like what I'm sure we were all doing. Like I didn't miss a game for like every sport. Kayla would always say, like, when's the off season? And it's like, doesn't feel like there is one. Like it's just the next sport. And like now, like, with just my feelings towards baseball have just declined significantly over the last, years just because of the A's and the sport itself. Like I don't watch anything during the summer, like really, other than maybe like, I'll watch the NHL draft in a couple of weeks and then it's just nothing. But yeah, I mean, just to answer the original question, there's probably nothing I would like not watch as like a protest type thing. Like there's nothing anyone can do to sports that makes me not watch it. Like I always told people like they could hold up a sign that says like I want Joey Moore murdered and I'd probably still watch. I don't care. I like, I don't like, because where else, like we keep putting this like it's a sports problem, and it's like what other thing could you do that doesn't have these things? Like what, like you want to be interested in movies, right? Okay, well, they don't make my favorite movies anymore because everything would be canceled immediately because I used to love like funny rated R comedies. Well, they don't make them anymore. And it's like, okay, let's go out to eat. Well, COVID happened and like your food is never right. It's super overpriced. And it's like, what do you do? Like, what do you like? You might as well do what you like because there's nothing you can do that's going to be completely removed from crap. Like, oh, this, we got sus workers and sus ownership, and like I feel like you could put that for like anything. Like I don't, unless you want to go fishing on a boat like you and the way the wind blows that day, which honestly, the more I get older, sounds like heaven. It's like just me, like in a fridge and like a sandwich in the middle of nowhere, talking to nobody. Like sounds
it's
great.
like Stanley from The Office saying, "I would love to get in a lighthouse," and then press a button to fire that lighthouse into space. Like I'm like, I get it now. Like I would love to just be alone doing nothing.
It's like
So it's like Office Space. Realize my dream of doing nothing.
Oh, that is, I love that movie. No, but it's like, I mean, Kayla, I don't know about you guys, like, for Jamie and I'm sorry, I forgot your girlfriend's
Laura.
name. Hope you're still with her, because if not, this is awkward.
We're still together.
Good.
Won't have to cut that from the podcast.
Oh, you broke up with the other one, Evan? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I cut that from the podcast.
Like she's like, like you watch a lot of shit, like basically like without telling me, like you need to change. And like I kind of just did. I just all of a sudden I was like, wow, I just don't watch as much as I used to. Mostly because the Sharks suck ass. I don't have to watch them play Columbus on a Tuesday night at 4:00 our time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially obviously in the next couple months, I'll be completely sidetracked. But I find it kind of poetic that this kid is going to be born in the like late July, early August, and there's just nothing going on.
Exactly how you planned it out.
Like, what if he was like born on a Super Bowl and he was like, I want to do something for my birthday. I'm like, today's not a good day. Today's not a good day. I remember my mom would get shafted all the time with me and my dad watching like hockey. Her birthday and Mother's Day were like 2 weeks apart. I'm just like, there was one year we went to playoff games, both her birthday and Mother's Day. Like just me and my dad.
No.
Oh, devastating.
And then the worst part is they lost. Like you come home and she's like, oh, like it's my birthday. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody right now. Just shut the hell up.
That's like when I had my birthday party on the day that the Seahawks decided not to run the ball to Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yikes.
Evan's February birthday has been twice ruined when they played the Steelers and when they played the Patriots, but at least you had a nice birthday.
Wait, your birthday was on Tuesday? Like, actually, I know they flipped the Super Bowl day. Like,
His
it was
birthday, February
so
1st.
Yeah.
So
and
both Super Bowls in Seattle, like Pittsburgh, were on February 1st?
I don't remember if they were
celebrate them that day.
We celebrate the Steelers one. We celebrated because it was the first time any of our teams had been to a championship, and we went to a Mexican restaurant in Fremont with all my friends and watched them proceed to get their asses kicked, and the refs have the worst game I've ever seen. And
I think that was the last Super Bowl I didn't watch. The only thing I remember about that is I didn't read this book I had to read for school, and then they're like, "Oh, like." No, like this is not an open book test or something. The next day, I think this must have been like 5th grade or something. I read the entire book, Super Bowl Sunday.
I would have rather done a book report that day than watch my Seahawks get their ass kicked by fucking. Was it Antonio Randall throwing a goddamn touchdown?
Yeah, Fast Willie Parker.
Yeah, God, what a shit show! I always remember everyone coming into the bathroom to cheer me up while I was just trying to take a piss in the urinal, thinking that I was crying in the bathroom. Memories.
Yes, good old La Pinata.
I still haven't been back.
No, we can't go back.
We used to go there all the time until they charged my mom like 3 times for one meal, like at the same charge, and that was like a whole ordeal. And then like my mom was like, "I'm never going back." I'm like, okay.
Devastating.
Yeah.
I hated Mexican food at the time. Now I'm like, it's just a humongous fan. It's been
Joey's made a great transformation.
It's one of the bigger changes in my life recently. Like I used to hate Mexican food. Just it was all just a bunch of mush to me. But then like a couple times like people were having like street tacos, and I just think those are like, oh my God. It was her cousin Jake's graduation like last week or something, and they hired street taco vendor to do it. I had 16.
Oh my God. Oh, I don't know if I've ever had more than 5 or 6.
Oh, I don't even know how that's possible. I was like eating 4 at a time.
Oh my God. That's incredible. And I
had 12, like literally 12, like, and then like they did their 3 hours of cooking, and then they like give them all the leftovers that they have out like for the thing. And I went back later and made 4. So I had 16.
Oh, what an epic performance.
I was on the toilet all night.
Yes. We expect nothing less from Joey. That's a good spot to pivot over to Joey's Jack in the Bum of the Week. Obviously, I don't know if we've ever had more truly like villainous candidates than we do. Always it's like when Jacoby Myers made that bonehead play, or, some quarterback had an awful game, or, Tom Brady waffled about retirement. Like, we have actual villains for you this week. So just some that came off the top of my head: PGA Commissioner Jay Monahan, John Fisher, your hated Golden Knights, the Florida Panthers, who really didn't put up any kind of fight in that series against the Knights. And then one final candidate I wanted to throw in there: the entire fucking city of Las Vegas. Fuck that place. I
couldn't pick them. I love Las Vegas.
But I used to love going there, but man, it's like, God, I fucking hate those people now. Like, everything about them. I'm sorry. But who are you going with for your Jack in the Bum of the Week on this momentous week?
Yeah, could be Jack in the Bum of the forever. But I got to go with A's president Dave Kaval.
Yes.
No specific reason. I mean, you could have a specific reason, but just seems like just a punchable face. Just like you just see his face, and I don't know, like things have just gone so downhill ever since he came here. Like, I remember when he was hired, earthquakes guy, and I was like, okay, we're gonna get a stadium built. Like, this guy's business. And then, I mean, I guess I could have gone with John Fisher because he probably is the head of the snake for this thing. Like, Dave Caval's probably just his talking voice for him. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Like, I saw the thing, the Nevada thing that you called into. I didn't see like your part. But I saw the part where that dude was like asked him the same question like 4 times, like yes or no, are you guys going to be responsible for this money, whatever it was? And he's like, we agreed to be a supportive partner in a wonderful relationship between the A's and the city. And the guy was like, I didn't find that so disingenuous because I asked you like 4 times yes or no answer and you won't commit to this money. So like whatever. And I was like, oh wow, this could like blow up. And then the next day you were like, it passed. It went through. But yeah, Dave, thanks for nothing. Absolutely nothing.
An absolute liar. He lied to all of our faces. I know. I mean, I met.
Remember
with
his
him.
office hours? Those were cool.
I went to one of
Oh,
his
yeah.
office hours and I talked to him, and I mean, in hindsight,
I can't believe I went to an A's fan fest years ago and got him to sign the sweet spot of a ball.
Man,
this guy, I mean, he conned all of us from the beginning. I know he tried to talk us into, 2018, 2019, with A's Access and with all these initiatives he was trying to spearhead and trying to get a new stadium first at the Peralta College site and then at Howard Terminal. We all thought for a limited amount of time, about a 18-month stretch there, that he was the real deal and that this new great era of A's baseball was coming. But the 2019 wild card game where 54,000 fans were there at the Coliseum, that was it. That was the last great moment in Oakland, because from then on, Cavill
Was
and
that against
Fisher
Tampa?
were the sinking ship. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Thank you,
that was
Dave
a
Cavill.
Sean
Thank you,
Manaea
John
special.
Fisher.
Yeah.
Oh,
D-ball
devastating.
location.
Oof.
I did see yesterday someone at the A's game brought a Dave Cavill bobblehead that they made. So kind of going along with the punchable face,
Like a
thing.
pinata. Like a ball
Yeah,
like pinata.
I would pay really good money to have a Dave Cavill pinata just to smack the living shit out of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be tremendous. We could find somebody.
Yesterday was impressive for the A's. Like, not the team. I mean, they won 7 in a row, but the fans. Because I kept thinking, I'm like, how the hell? I mean, I know it's a reverse pro. Like, I know probably organize all this, but I'm still like, I've been like, it's a long drive. Like, was it free parking? Are they still doing free parking Tuesdays?
Oh, God, no. 30
hell
bucks.
no. Hell no.
The whole
I thought maybe that's why it was a Tuesday. I guess not.
No, the whole thing
It's
is
like, what are you gonna do? Take Bart and get murdered or like peed on?
that was the whole point of what Fisher and Cavill were doing in 2022 and this year is they pulled staff out of the stadium, so the place is horribly understaffed. You can't
That was
get
always the funniest thing. They're like, I keep reading on like you'll be at a game, you read on Twitter, tonight's attendance 6,000 people, and I'm like, why is there still a line for a hot dog?
That's the thing.
Like, why does it still seem like crowded?
Fisher and Cavill purposely did that. They have so few ticket takers, so few staff everywhere throughout the Coliseum, so that you can't even get into the game. My dad and Evan went to opening day, and they couldn't even get into like the 4th inning, because anytime they have more than like 3,000 fans, you can't get into the game because there's nobody there to like scan your barcode so that you can go in. And then once you go in, if you go get in line for like a beer and a hot dog, it's going to be the 7th inning before you get back to your seat. Like, they are purposely doing this so that nobody goes to the games. It's an absolute travesty, and yet another reason why Dave Cavill wins Joey's Jack in the Bum of the week, maybe the Jack in the Bum of the decade.
Still waiting on a Jack in the Box sponsor. You know, just put it there, Jack in the Box.
Been almost a year. We haven't heard back from him. Hopefully, we hear back from him soon.
Now that you're Mexican food,
I just was about to say
have
that.
the
I might be
tacos.
like, what's like, you know? I don't know. Jack in the Bum. I don't know. I have to think of a place.
El Pollo Loco of the week. I don't know. We'll have to find something. So this is typically the part of the podcast where we do my "You Like That" picks of the week. Obviously, there's not much to bet on right now, so we're going to take a quick look at the schedules for the 49ers, Vikings, and Seahawks, and just kind of dissect where we think our teams are going this year after the schedule release. So in between our last pod and this pod, the NFL finally dropped their schedule. I'll start with the Vikings. I looked at our schedule and I thought, hey, it's literally the easiest game on our schedule in week 1 and then the most difficult game on our schedule in week 2. I'll take it. Week 1 at home against Tampa and then week 2 at Philly. So I'm hoping that's a standard 1-1 start. After that, we have a very tough game at home against Kansas City in week 5, and then obviously the Niners game on Monday Night Football in week 7. But a relatively easy stretch after that Niner game. I'm thinking we're going to be somewhere in the 9-4, 8-5 range at the bye. And then looking at how we end the season, Detroit, Green Bay, Detroit. So we play the Lions, who are probably going to be the favorite to win the division 2 times in the last 3 weeks, and then sandwich that with a game against Green Bay on Sunday Night Football in week 17. So I'm thinking, 10-7-ish. As long as everybody stays healthy after looking at that schedule. And really, even if we, come out to a flying start, or if we suck at the beginning of the year, it's not going to be over, because there's 3 division games, probably against the 2 teams who are competing with us for the division title in the final 3 weeks. So when I saw the schedule drop, the first thing that comes to mind is we start easy, then we go to Philly, and then we end the season with divisional games. Ev, you took a look at the Seahawks schedule when it came out, and you said, hey, little soft at the beginning, tough in the middle, and soft at the end. Where do you see the Seahawks heading into next season after you saw the schedule release?
If I had to say, I would say they're probably going to be a little bit similar to last year. I see them as maybe a 10-win team, 9-win team. Like you were saying, they start the season off pretty easily, but then they have one stretch of games that could make or break them, because they're going against the Niners on Thanksgiving, then the Cowboys, which I think is going to be a Thursday night game.
Yep.
Then the Niners again, and then the Eagles. All in 4. Those are maybe the 3 best teams in the NFC, and they're playing them 4 times. And it's going to be a really rough stretch there. But they ended with the Titans, Steelers, Cardinals. I don't really believe in the Titans anymore. Cardinals are just a running joke at this point. I think as long as they can get through maybe those first, they have their bye week. I think week 5. Yeah. So if they can get through the first 4 games with a 3-win record, and then enter, it looks like it's week 12 when they're going to have that horrible stretch. If they can get to week 12, having lost only 3 to 4 games by that point, I think that they're going to be maybe a contender to win the division. I still think the Niners are probably the team to beat, but I think if they can get to that stretch with maybe just 3 losses or 4 losses, they can make a run at the division. If they choke some of those games and then they enter that stretch, this could go haywire. But I'm thinking they're probably going to be a 10-win team, 10-11.
And I think in my discussions with both you and Joey, since you're both teams in the NFC West, you both seem to think, obviously, Arizona's going to be awful. But there seems to be, and Joey, you can talk to this, kind of a consensus that the Rams are going to suck again next year, despite...
I think they're going to suck ass.
Despite maintaining McVay. They retained McVay. They have Matthew Stafford back, who they say is probably going to play, even though he has supposed elbow
he'll play
issues.
maybe a couple games. I just don't think he'll stay healthy.
So you're both banking on the Rams sucking and it being.
I think the Rams will be better than Arizona. Maybe by
I
a
agree.
game. But I think Arizona might go 2-15, if that.
So looking at the Niners schedule, what were your big takeaways?
They should get off to a good start. I know Pittsburgh. They start in Pittsburgh. That'll be tough. Especially, I mean, we started in Chicago last year. I know it was a monsoon, but we lost to Chicago. So anything happens week 1. But I think then I just talked about it at LA, win, and then come home to play the Giants. That's a Thursday night home opener. That's weird. Win. Then they play Arizona at home. Win. Then they play Dallas at home. So 3 straight home games. But I mean, I'm not going to put a clear W against Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be really good. And then they get at Cleveland, at Minnesota. Probably at least go 1-1. And then they hit what I think is going to be they go Cincinnati at home, at Jacksonville. Then they come home to beat the shit out of Tampa. And then they go at Seattle, at Philly, then home against Seattle. So those same 3 stretch you had, Evan, with Seattle, like with us, and then in the middle you had who'd you have?
Cowboys.
Yeah, you had Dallas. So we have Philly. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's it. And then you play Arizona after that. And I mean, it's definitely a tougher schedule. I mean, that's crazy thing is you never know. I mean, like, what if one of these what if Joe Burrow gets hurt? I don't know. That's why I hate doing these. Like, how many wins do you think you're going to get? But I mean, I mean, at least 12-5.
So
I'm not going to. I'd say 12-5, like 13-4. I don't think anything better than 13-4.
at least
Like-
12-5. I heard that as we are going to have at least 12 wins, and that must mean you're pretty confident in the quarterback situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Whoever it is, other than Trey. Although, did you read? I read today that potential Lance and a fourth to Minnesota for Daniel Hunter.
Oh,
If that was it, I'd drive from there myself. Do you need a limo? Do you want to take my Chevy Cobalt? Probably too big for my car, but
I don't know. I might entertain that because the Hunter's leaving one way or another, and getting his cap hit off the books might
we had that guy
be
on
a
the opposite of Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, and then God, if Javon Kimmel ever stood on his two knees without snapping one of them, doing anything, Armstead, I'd be like, there we go.
So you, after looking at the schedule, we're thinking at least 12-5. Ev's thinking 9 or 10 wins for the Seahawks. I'm thinking around 9 or 10 wins for the Vikings. I did one of those websites where you just basically predict every game. You start in week 1, you go through week 18. And some takeaways I had from my simulation that I did was I have Baltimore going 13-4, which I was surprised by. I probably thought they would go 9-8 or 10-7. But as I simmed through their schedule, they actually, because they stank last year with the Jackson injury, they actually have a much easier schedule than I thought. So I think they're a contender to surprise, at 13-4. I had the Chargers missing the playoffs. They're going to enter next season as, for the millionth year in a row, everybody's, dark horse pick to contend. I just think they have no home field advantage. I think Herbert is slightly overrated, and I have them missing the playoffs. And then this one was kind of nuts. So as you're going through each game and you go, okay, this team at this team, I'll give this team the win. This team at this team, I'll give this team the win. Washington went 2-15 in my sim, so I'm definitely going to be fading them. I faded them last year, which was a big mistake. But their over/under win total set at 7.5. I feel like I got to hammer that under 7.5 if I have them going 2-15. So those kind of jumped out at me. Evan, do you have any picks that you think might be better or worse than expectation after looking at the schedule and after now we've been well after the draft?
My biggest pick, which it seems like it's actually becoming more of a trendy pick now, is I think the Lions are legit contenders. I think they I think they look, Dan Campbell biting people's kneecaps off and everything. Like he's
I'm an
got them
honorary
going.
Lions fan. Last year, Hard Knocks was great. That week 18, I guess it would have been against the Packers. Oh, if we're not going to the playoffs, then they're not either.
That's it. That's what got the Seahawks into the playoffs. So I will forever be an honorary Lions fan for that.
Yeah.
But
Eric's like super. This just gets more fun. I thought when Rodgers left, we'd be right there, and then
I mean, I don't know. Like you guys, I know this is very much a body language podcast. Mm-hmm. I know that's very important to you guys.
Oh, you do listen.
I do.
We do have a listener.
You do. I am a longtime listener, first time caller. Hopefully you'll be a caller again someday, but I don't want to sully the podcast too much. But try to find a coach with better body language than Dan Campbell. Like that's a guy that I think every player on the team wants to run through a wall for.
Mm-hmm.
I
want to run through a wall for him, and I don't want to get off the couch.
I want to run through a wall for him too.
He's running to the fridge for Dan Campbell.
He's the NFC version of like Mike Tomlin, where it's like very clear that the players, no matter who the players are, like it could be the backup long snapper or the starting quarterback. They are like, this is my guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think Dan Campbell is way less of a meathead than he kind of comes off as. Or maybe it really is Brian Johnson, all the offensive stuff. I think I got his name right.
Offensive coordinator.
No, they're good.
So
Defense.
Ev says Detroit as definitely a pick to do really well, and then obviously we heard you're definitely fading both the Rams and the Cardinals next year. Obviously they're not expected to be great, but
They're
Joey,
going to be dog water.
yeah, they're thinking
love that
5
word.
wins or less. Joey, anybody you're picking to be a surprise next year?
Well, since Evan went with a good surprise, and since I just hate people having fun, I actually think Buffalo is going to kind of like come back to earth. And this has nothing to do with like Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, because I still think they missed the playoffs.
Me too.
I just like saw Stephon Diggs just didn't want to go to practice yesterday and was like, 4 wins. But I don't know. I just think I'm not gonna say they missed their window, but like they're like it's gonna be again. It's as much as I think Mac Jones sucks, and I think the Patriots suck. Like it's gonna be hard to beat Belichick twice. Maybe it's not anymore. I don't know, but like, are they gonna beat the Jets twice? Are they gonna beat Miami twice? Are they gonna beat the Bengals? Are they gonna beat the Chiefs? Like they would play the first place schedule. They're gonna beat the Jaguars. Like I don't know. I feel like
they play the Niners and Seahawks too.
I feel like, do they?
Oh no, I thought that's the Bengals. My fault. You're talking about the Bills.
Yeah. The Bengals. We play the Bengals. Buffalo. Yeah, I think last year with the Bengals at home was a kind of a kick in the dick. Like they lost, but like they were like, I mean, they were first time. Like I feel like they were almost like unanimous. Like they're winning the Super Bowl. Like week 1, and then like they went backwards. It felt like. They had that whole like we deserve a banner too. We lost to the Chiefs in overtime, the year before in Kansas City, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's their time." And then the Bengals were like curb stomped them in the snow
in their
Buffalo.
stadium. Yeah,
and guys get paid more. Guys like they lost more guys. I don't know. I think they're going to come back to earth a bit. And yeah, my other thing was the Jets. This whole like, I mean, Rodgers sounds like he's having a good old time. Cool. You're going to go 9-8, probably with a good defense and miss the playoffs.
Yeah, in my sim, I had Buffalo 10-7 because
hot take might be Packers finish better record than the Jets.
Okay, that's a good one.
I like that.
I obviously I don't want that to happen, but I kind of do like that. I think LaFleur is definitely going to want to stick it to Rodgers this year. I think if he can drag that,
I'm interested to see what he does without Rodgers being like, "I hate this play, call something else."
I mean, I think Jordan Love is atrocious, but I think LaFleur is actually a really good coach. So we'll see how that goes. That would be crazy if they finish like 9-8 and the Jets finish 7-10 after all that. Would have big Russell Wilson to the Broncos vibes where this franchise icon goes elsewhere and the team does better.
If Jordan Love struggles, send Zach Wilson to the Packers and watch them finish with a better record.
Oh my God. Now that is a great idea. So let's close the pod. We'll do your feels great, baby, your wildest take you feel best about currently. Joey, every time we throw this one over to you, you come up with something crazy. It's usually like, I think the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl after like week 2, or I think, this team is going to miss the playoffs, even though they were minus 800 to make the playoffs to start the season. This week for the feels great, baby segment, you're going way off topic.
It might be the best one yet. What Joey's feels great, baby? Of the week, of the month, of the off season? Nothing. I don't feel great about anything. Like I said, this is one big spinning rock of sus that we're on called planet Earth. Shit, I was on the internet the other day, or just on YouTube. Apparently things are dropping down in Vegas from the sky. We don't know. It's just freaking weird, man. I don't know. Let me go watch sports. Oh, your team moves. I'll go, play some golf. 1, I suck. Number 2, oh yeah, golf. Sus. Oh. Hockey, basketball, over. Vegas wins. Nothing. I don't feel good about anything. Everything, you go to dinner, everything so damn expensive. I'm not going to add the birth of my child because he might listen and be like, wow, you thought that was terrible. No. Don't feel good about anything. I feel good about getting let down in the future, sports wise. I feel really good. I would hammer that. Go to Vegas, hammer me getting my feelings hurt about something.
minus 10,000, but you still lay the bet. You just have to.
I was talking to my dad last time I saw him. I forgot when it was. I was like, "So what happens if you just put $1,000 on the A's to lose every game this season? Like, how do you not come out with money?" And then, like, since then they've gone on a 7-game winning streak. But I was just like, maybe I can get something out of this. Like, what if I just put 1,000? I mean, at the time, I think they were like 11-40 something.
Mhm.
I'm like, the odds must be like A's.
Oh, yeah.
1,000.
Yeah.
Every game they're always
To
like
lose.
plus 270 to like plus 400. So if you bet on them the last 7 games, you've been very profitable. But one of the worst teams to bet on in the history of sports. So yeah, there's your feels great baby of the week. He feels good about nothing, and I kind of echo that sentiment. So
I feel
now
good
that we
about taking up a fishing trip, maybe like camping. Like I said, just
be out in the wilderness and
be
do
one,
nothing.
be one with the earth.
Yeah.
See, they
Start
can't take
growing,
that
start
from you.
growing your own food.
It-
in the backyard.
Dave Campbell can't hurt you in the woods.
But we might be able to hurt Dave Cavill in the woods. Hopefully, we don't get sued for
The
libel
only
for that
person
one.
I'd be hurting in the woods would be myself. I wouldn't last.
Be like, they don't have Dr. Pepper in the woods? What am I supposed to drink?
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got Evan on the pod. We have to introduce this new segment. So Evan is a nurse. He just started working out in the field about 2 months ago, and we wanted to come up with a segment with a nursing theme.
I'm sorry.
And he,
We were just talking about the woods. He works out in the field. I pictured Evan just like
standing out in the
looking
field.
for somebody to like with his stethoscope around his neck. Like, anyone?
Is there anybody? Yeah, he's doing checkups on bears out in the middle of the woods.
I'm just checking.
He's looking for me.
Like, this is a birch tree. Let me take
He's
this.
looking for me out there.
So we had to come up with a segment for Ev, and he came up with this tremendous idea. So there's something he wants to talk about that he just does not want to be in sports anymore. So Ev, I will give you the floor here. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm proud to introduce this segment to this illustrious podcast. As a nurse, one of the things that we get from if I'm an oncoming nurse, the nurse who is working before, and I get their patients, they give us report of what our patients were going through. And one of the first things they'll tell us is what the patient's code status is. Either their full code, if they're going into cardiac arrest, you try to save them, or do not resuscitate. This is my DNR of the week, because there are some people in sports that deserve a DNR. And I say that as a nurse that's supposed to care for patients, but there's some people that are beyond saving. And one of those, and I know we've all experienced this, are people on Instagram, Twitter, etc., who make these meme accounts. You've seen the Skip Bayless burner accounts, the Kenny Pickettsburg is the GOAT accounts. All these people that go online, make these burner accounts, and then just proceed to shit on every single tweet of every single team known to man. Like yesterday, I was watching all these.
Dude, I guess I got to
stories.
delete all my accounts that I made.
I fucking knew it.
I am Danny Heatley 09. I'm all-star Danny Heatley. That's me.
I fucking knew it. It like yesterday, all these positive vibes about the A's game, the reverse boycott, seeing all these great things, like listen to how great the crowd is, and they're all saying sell the team, sell the team. And you look under, and every single one of these tweets, there's some dipshit named like Pickettsburg going like, "Lol, go to Vegas," or there's someone like, it's just so annoying. Let me have my fucking moment. Like, it's so annoying.
They'll post like a robot with like its eyes burning and it says, "You just lost to, insert team here." It's like,
Yeah,
what?
I've seen ones that said the Sharks all year. You just lost to the Sharks.
It's fucking Astros fans. They're all over that shit too every time.
Oh
my God. But that's if they're in the hospital and I find out, okay, this, Joe Schmo, this is, Jose Altuve goated for life on Instagram that's been leaving all these red-eyed memes on every A's tweet. I may have to look at a DNR for them. I don't think they're beyond saving.
I assumed all those people were like, I assumed that was some sort of bot. I just like, who has this much time?
Oh, they're out there.
Like,
There's-
I know there's this guy who, you know, when I was on the Twitter machine, who used to comment, was the first commenter because Sharks don't get very many.
Oh,
Every
I
time
know
the Sharks posted the final score, was named like
Brandon
Quinlog or something.
Quinlog.
Yeah.
Yes, I know exactly who you were talking about.
I'm just like, dude, like I'm mad too. Like I'm bitter about this team, but like, damn, do you have this much time and like effort? Like
This
every
dude
time
would
he's
tweet
just like,
1,000 times a day, like grade fucking.
I just like, I'm like, so every time I'd see it, I'm like, there's Brandon, whatever. If I was like, you can't be, I'm like, you got to be a bot. Like, there's no way you log on every time. No way.
They're
And
out
I'm like,
there.
I guess he does.
Yeah.
Yes, he
This
does.
is what these people do.
It's absolutely disgusting behavior. We see it basically everywhere. Obviously every time I see a slightly controversial sports tweet, you click on the tweet because you have to see the comments and you want to see something funny. But a lot of the time, the majority of what you see is tweets like that. And these people, by the way, they also pay like services to like their tweets for them so that they get moved to the top so that everybody has to see, like that guy 3-year
Really?
Letterman or whatever.
Is that real?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Really?
yeah. Mhm.
My
I paid
dumbass
for
still thought it was
followers
all
for my
chronological order.
I paid for
every
followers
time.
for my company's
Like I thought this guy was
Instagram
just the
account.
first one every time. Like, do you get notified every time the Sharks tweet something just so you could come on and post like, I hate all of you, you suck ass.
No, you can do it. There's tons of websites that you just go, you Venmo them like $100.
Pathetic,
Yeah.
above
It's
ground
gross.
being.
When I was just launching the social media accounts for my company I work for, I told my boss, hey, give me like $500 and I can get these to like 2,000 or 5,000 followers just to get it off the ground so that people see it's reputable or whatever. And you literally pay the money and within 10 minutes, it's like all these accounts from like India and China follow it and boom, you're at 5,000. Wow. And I'm like, that's what these people are doing.
I read something that like celebrities, some of them do that. And I was like, okay, well, you're celebrities. Like most of you come with no substance whatsoever anyway. But then like these regular people, like.
So sad.
Yeah.
Devastating. So that's Evan's
I
DNR.
guess if it works, I guess if you pay enough and it works and you land some sort of Jack in the Bum with a week deal with Jack in the Box, maybe it works. But if you're this Brandon Quinlog, like he's probably listening to our podcast and is like, I hate this guy. Guess what? I don't have a Twitter. You can't at me. So
Joey's officially off all social media, which that may be the way to go here sometime in the near future for me.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't say I'm a happy person because I just hate my job more than anything on earth right now. But yeah, it's made me happier. Oh, it's way less because oh my god, if I was on Twitter last night with all the Vegas people I know that I kind of like will search because I love to watch them when they lose, like all the post game shows and stuff. And I'm like, well, I haven't watched if I was watching last night, boy, I probably would have been Glenn Kuiper. Probably would have said, it's been like all these words, all of them. Would have said all of them. There'd been so many museums being built in that tweet.
Oh my god.
Gotta keep you out of Kansas City booth.
Yep. Yeah. Keep you away from Castellanos. Devastating week in sports. There's Evan's DNR of the week. Bot accounts that just tweet ridiculous shit at all these teams. So let's close the pod. Joey, anything you want to talk about as you're coming up on fatherhood? You're 6 or 7 weeks away. Obviously, I mean, you were a little bit late for the pod tonight because you had to do a big Costco run. A lot of that coming up in your future, huh?
Yeah, except more because I wish all the money we spent was for something like future baby, but no, it's just my fat ass and like paper towels and like Windex.
Oh yeah,
and, like a couple rotisserie chickens. No, I know her baby shower is coming up and yeah, it's she definitely like. It was like, she's pregnant. It's like, okay, you're pregnant. And then even she was like, I don't like look pregnant. I'm like, and then all of a sudden, like one day it was like, damn. Wow. He's in there. We go to appointments like every week, like ultrasounds and stuff. Like we went to one yesterday. And you see him like open and close his mouth. I'm like, that's wild. Like I heard there was a baby in there, but like you see it and it's like, oh, he's moving his lips and his arms. He's like sucking on his thumb. I'm like, I always thought babies were just like until they're born, but they're like, no, like they like move and like they got to be in a certain direction. They're like, oh, he's head down. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I guess it means like his head is closer to like where he's coming out. Right out of
The things you
the poop
learn.
shoot. And yeah. A lot of like real anxiety. Like
Mhm.
you know, that's what I mean. Like, just like priorities change. Like, I always wonder, my like dad, like, why do you look like you don't care anymore? And he's like, I got like real shit I gotta worry. And it's like, I guess that's kind of what I feel like,
Mhm.
oh, it's like younger me would have probably been even more upset than I am than watching like Vegas win. But like now it's like, I'd probably be more upset if I went to one of these like doctor appointments and they're like, yeah, this kid is fucked. Like,
Oh my God.
like when that doctor's like rubbing the ultrasound like over her stomach and you're just like, and you see it on the screen and you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. Like, is everything okay? And you see like colors flash. I'm like, oh, okay, what the hell is that? Like, what is that? And then they don't talk until they're finally done. They're like, okay, everything looks good. See you next week. You're like, oh my God.
You're
It's like we
oh
went
my
to
God.
like months ago. We went to the ones like, okay, here's the one we're counting every one of his fingers and toes. Like, okay, and then we had like the neuro one. They're like, okay, we're doing his brain. Like, oh, this is kind of important. Like, this is more important than like what else I'd be doing. Like, if watching whatever game's potentially on. I'm like, wow, okay. And then like every time Kayla like calls my name, I'm like assuming it's like, hey, I don't think he's breathing anymore. Like in my head, I'm like, worst. I always go worst case scenario. I'm like today she did it, and it was like, oh hey, what do you want for lunch? But she was like, hey, are you in a meeting? You come here. I'm like, oh my God, like bad, so bad. And then it's like, oh, we don't have any food. You want to order something? It's like, oh, thank God. Oh,
So yeah, it puts your sports anxiety into perspective for sure.
but like coming up to the birth, like we both been talking. She's like, I know we kind of like joke about it, but like this guy's like actually gotta like, I gotta birth this baby. Like I know that's kind of how this works. You've been like kind of bugging me for a baby for a while, but like I thought you thought this point out. Like it does have to come out. Like you don't just walk around with him for 18 years until he becomes like he does leave your body. And she's like, I know, but like, boy, it's a tight squeeze. Like he's a big guy. Like, and she's like, he's pushing on my ribs. Like if he pushes anymore, like, uh-oh. And I'm like, great. So then, yeah, the Good Doctor episode came on, and I'm like, awesome, just great.
I think the podcast is going to take a major hit over the next 7 weeks as you get closer to that day. I think I'm going to have to find a temporary new co-host, and I think Evan's right at the top of the list. We'll have probably some rotating guests.
Have him on all the time.
The start of the downfall.
Yeah, we're going to definitely have some rotating co-hosts as we go forward.
See, if we had more co-hosts, we could like maybe do like, I'm not going to push 3 a week, but like 2 a week.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There's like football, hockey, baseball. What did you say that made you laugh? What did you say?
Evan said he heard Glenn Kuiper's available. Oh, what a season!
Might have to change the name of the podcast.
So that baby is gone.
We could all joke about it. We could all joke about it, but we would get people to listen.
Yeah, he's going to make his triumphant return to sports media on this lowly podcast.
Hey,
it's a classy establishment.
I'm just we're all about good people. I want Russell Wilson to like rehabilitate his image. Maybe we could do the same for Glenn Kuiper. Just a little media rehab.
Oh yeah, Johnny Manziel. We'll bring everybody on here. Anybody who needs a boost to their
Look,
career.
Johnny Football would be. Kayla was watching some show. Oh, she was watching that Selling Sunset on Netflix.
Oh, Jamie
And this
watches
lady
that too.
comes on, and she's like, they were all talking about her. She has a kid with Nick Cannon.
Mhm.
And then she's just like, yeah, you know, talking about him, but I also was married to Johnny Manziel over here. I'm like, whoa, what? I was like, Kayla, pause it. What? She was married to Johnny Football? She's like, who's Johnny Football? And I'm like, only the whitest dude with the most just swag you ever seen. His name was Johnny Football, and he got away with it. Just that's all I gotta say.
We watched that episode as well, or she watched it, and I was there. I tend to zone
I watched all
out
of
on
it.
these things.
She watched all of it, binged it.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we have run a little bit over time, so we're going to call it there. Thank you to my brother Evan for joining us for this pod to discuss the state of sports, this devastating A's news. But we're going to try to remain positive. We're going to keep the pod going. We're definitely going to come back in a few weeks as we get towards preseason football and start previewing all the divisions as we get into next year, make some picks for the season of who we think is going to win the Super Bowl, who's coming out of each division, what the playoffs are going to look like, MVP, all that stuff. We'll take a look at that as we come together in the coming weeks to prep for the 2023 NFL season and season 2 of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.